Welcome, dear audience, to our channel, where we explore riveting stories that reflect the complexities of society. Today, we invite you to immerse yourself in a gripping tale titled Invisible Judge, When Justice Turns Away from the Poor. In this story, we journey into the life of Samuel Rodriguez, a dedicated public defender who tirelessly fights for his clients against a legal system that often favors the wealthy. Samuel, a man of integrity and compassion, represents the countless voices unheard in the courtroom. Each day, he steps into the courthouse, armed with a belief in justice, yet burdened by the weight of overwhelming odds. His office, cluttered with files and case notes, speaks to the tireless hours spent defending those who have fallen on hard times. Among his cases is Maria, a single mother struggling to make ends meet, wrongfully accused of theft. Maria embodies the very essence of a broken system that preys on the vulnerable. As Samuel navigates this world, he encounters not only the struggles of his clientele but also the cold indifference of a system built on power and wealth. The courtroom becomes a battleground, where the truth often takes a backseat to legal maneuvering and financial influence. Despite the challenges, Samuel's tenacity ignites a spark of hope in those he defends. He believes that every person deserves to be seen, heard, and treated with dignity. With every case, Samuel's resolve grows stronger. But the shadows of corruption loom larger. This chapter introduces the foundational struggle of our story, where justice and morality collide. It is a reminder that the fight for justice is not just an individual battle but a collective struggle for a fairer society. As we embark on this emotional journey with Samuel, we invite you to reflect on the implications of a justice system that often turns its back on the most needy. Join us as we delve deeper into Samuel's fight for justice. Samuel Rodriguez arrived at the courthouse each day with a determined stride, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. As a public defender, his office was a small cubicle adorned with hastily pinned reminders, photos of his family, and a motivational quote that read, "Justice delayed is justice denied." He believed profoundly in this statement. But each case he took on reminded him of the uphill battles entrenched within the justice system. On this particular morning, Samuel was met with a fresh challenge. He had been assigned to represent Maria Sanchez, a young single mother accused of stealing essential groceries from a local store. As he reviewed the case file, he could feel his heart racing. Maria's situation was stark, a woman struggling to provide for her two small children, now facing jail time for a crime she did not commit. It clashed sharply against the image of an oblivious legal system that saw only numbers and statistics, not the human stories trapped within. As Samuel met Maria in the cramped interview room, he observed the despair in her eyes. Her hands trembled as she spoke, punctuated by the occasional sniffle. "I didn't do it, Mr. Rodriguez," she pleaded, the weight of fear evident in her voice. "I just wanted to feed my kids. Please. You have to help me." Samuel took her hands, seeking to instill some hope. "I believe you, Maria. We will fight this together," he reassured her. As he delved deeper into the details of her case, Samuel noticed inconsistencies that begged for investigation. Witness statements seemed overly simplistic, and the store's surveillance footage was conveniently unavailable. It was then that he sensed a darker web of deceit surrounding not only Maria's case, but potentially others like hers. The frustration gnawed at him. Seeking guidance, Samuel confided in Fiona, A fellow lawyer whose tenacity matched his. It's more than just a theft charge. Isn't it? Samuel mused one evening. His brow furrowed with concern over coffee. Fiona nodded. Her expression grave. We need to dig deeper. Samuel. There's something off about how this case is being handled. Fueled by their shared resolve, they decided to investigate further, promising each other not to let the system suffocate Maria's voice. Their investigation led them down a rabbit hole of hidden truths. As they gathered evidence, they uncovered a pattern. The same store had pressed charges against numerous low-income individuals over minor offenses. It became clear to them that Maria was not just a victim of individual circumstance, she was a pawn in a larger game playing out in a system stacked against the poor. Fueled by a sense of justice and urgency, Samuel vowed to uncover the truth behind the curtain of corruption. Determined to ensure that Maria's story was heard. The fight ahead would be grueling. But he was ready. After all, every person deserved a defender, especially when the world seemed determined to silence them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps, Samuel leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning through the mountain of documents stacked before him. The case files on Maria, the single mother facing wrongful theft charges, were chaotic and overwhelming. Despite the barrage of legal jargon and emotional testimonies, Samuel felt a gnawing unease. Something wasn't right. One day, as Samuel was sifting through a shaky witness statement, he received an unexpected visit from Fiona. A sharp-witted, ambitious attorney known for her determination to fight corruption in the system. Her presence brought an air of urgency. Samuel. We need to talk, she said. Her voice barely above a whisper. Scanning their surroundings to ensure no one was eavesdropping. What's going on? Fiona. Samuel replied. Intrigued. He invited her to sit across from him. Fiona leaned in closer, lowering her voice. I've been digging into the backstory of Maria's case, and what I found is troubling. You need to see this. Producing a folder from her bag, she slid it across the table. Inside were documents proving that key witnesses in Maria's case had received financial incentives, unpaid parking tickets erased, bills paid, in exchange for their testimonies against her. Samuel's heart raced as he read through the damning evidence. This is incredible. If we can prove that the prosecution has tampered with witnesses, this could change everything, he said. Hope igniting within him. Exactly? Fiona acknowledged. But we must tread carefully. The system has deep roots of corruption, and exposing it could endanger our careers. Or worse? Samuel understood the risks but deemed the fight for justice too important to ignore. Motivated by Fiona's revelations, Samuel re-examined his notes and sought to identify how the evidence stacked up against the whispers of corruption. As he gathered information, they encountered wary glances from colleagues and insistent demands from the prosecution to drop the case. Days turned into a blur as Samuel began connecting the dots between misleading evidence and the prosecution's tactics. He became obsessed, poring over every detail of Maria's case, determined to reveal the truth. With Fiona by his side, they devised a strategy to confront their superiors with the incriminating evidence. However, the deeper they dug, the more they uncovered the murky waters of illicit deals. The prosecution wasn't simply intent on convicting an innocent woman, their motive was much darker. As they ventured further into the labyrinth of corruption, their resolve solidified. They could not allow the system to claim another innocent life. But with each step closer to the truth, Samuel realized they were tangling with a mighty adversary. Would their pursuit of justice prove to be their undoing? This chapter of Samuel's journey highlights the complexity of navigating a corrupt legal landscape while illustrating his unwavering commitment to fighting for integrity and truth. Their combined determination unveils a darker reality, driving them deeper into a world where justice seems elusive and corruption reigns supreme. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the courthouse in hues of orange and purple, Samuel felt a familiar knot tighten in his stomach. The courtroom had been the arena of his battles for justice. But lately, it felt more like a labyrinthine maze designed to ensnare those who dared to push against its walls. With files strewn across his cluttered desk and a cup of lukewarm coffee in hand, he reflected on the challenges ahead. The deeper Samuel dug into Maria's case, the more disconcerting evidence he uncovered. He meticulously analyzed the police reports and witness testimonies, and inconsistencies began to jump out at him like a warning siren. He couldn't shake the sensation that something sinister lurked beneath the surface. It was during one late night in the office that he crossed paths with Fiona, his colleague who exuded confidence and fierceness. Fiona leaned against the doorframe, her eyes glinting with determination. "Samuel, we need to talk," she said, her voice low but urgent. As they settled into the cramped silence of the office, she revealed her own suspicions about the case. "I've been hearing whispers, things that suggest there's more to this case than meets the eye. There are people in the prosecutor's office who seem far too invested in making Maria guilty." Samuel's heart raced. "What do you mean?" He couldn't afford to ignore the gravity of her words. There have been unusual plea deals and mishandled evidence coming from the same attorney handling Maria's case. It reeks of corruption, like a hidden hand is orchestrating the outcome. Fiona explained, her voice steady yet filled with urgency, determined to uncover the truth. They dove headlong into the investigation, with each meeting in shadowy corners of cafes and back alleys. They gathered bits and pieces of information. They interviewed former clients and court officials, each encounter revealing a disturbing web of deceit. It became evident that Maria's predicament was merely a small node in a much larger conspiracy targeting vulnerable individuals caught in the system's crossfire. Emboldened by their discoveries, Samuel and Fiona reached out to Stephen, a former district attorney rumored to have turned whistleblower. His knowledge could be the key to exposing the corruption they suspected. They arranged to meet him in a secluded park under the guise of casual conversation. As they exchanged stories, Samuel's resolve solidified. This was not just about saving Maria, it was about dismantling a broken system that preyed on the weak. But with knowledge came risk. Anonymous threats began to plague Samuel, slipping under his door and littering his voicemail. "Stop digging or pay the price." The stark warnings rattled him. Yet he refused to abandon his mission. Side by side with Fiona, he ventured deeper into the dark underbelly of the judicial system, determined to expose the truth and propel Maria's case into the light. As shadows lengthened around them, Samuel realized this fight was no longer just a job, it was a crusade, a battle for the rights of those too often left voiceless. Fervently, he reminded himself, they weren't merely defending one woman, they were challenging an unjust status quo. With newfound purpose, they pressed on, ready to confront those who would stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. The path ahead was fraught with danger. But Samuel's courage only grew stronger, fueled by the voices of the forgotten, echoing in the recesses of his conscience. As the sun rose on a particularly tense day, Samuel Rodriguez sat at his cluttered desk, sifting through layers of legal documents tied to Maria's case. Papers lay scattered around, a mixture of plea deals, witness statements, and legal precedents he was hoping could pave a path towards justice. Fiona's steadfast gaze met his across the room. She had been a calm harbor in their storm, but today felt different. The weight of their quest pressed heavily on both of them. "Sam. We need to move fast," Fiona said, breaking the silence that had grown oppressive. "We have a narrow window to act before the trial begins. The prosecution is determined to bury Maria under false charges." "Right," Samuel replied, rubbing the bridge of his nose. The recent meetings with witnesses had shown him just how deep the corruption ran. It wasn't just about winning a case anymore, it was about exposing the rotten heart of the system he had dedicated his life to defending. Developing a plan had become crucial. It was a race against time. Samuel and Fiona decided to enlist the help of Stephen Mendez, a former district attorney whose career had spiraled down after he blew the whistle on the corrupt practices of his peers. In secrecy, they arranged a late-night meeting in a quiet diner known for its anonymity. The atmosphere in the diner was charged with a mixture of hope and apprehension as Stephen stepped into the booth. "So, you're looking for dirt on the prosecutors?" he asked, his eyes glinting with a mix of curiosity and wariness. "Yes," Samuel replied earnestly. "Maria needs a fighting chance. And we believe the evidence connects to a broader pattern of corruption affecting many lives." With the diner's neon lights flickering outside, Stephen leaned in closer. "I've seen it all. Powerful people have their claws deep within the judicial system. They will go to great lengths to protect their interests. But if we work together, we may have a chance." As the conversation unfolded, the trio brainstormed strategies to gather evidence linking Maria's case to the corruption. Stephen recounted his experience, providing invaluable insights into the inner workings of the legal system. They devised a plan to secretly record conversations with key players, making sure to document any signs of wrongdoing. But as Samuel left the diner, he felt the gnawing sensation of doubt creeping in. The deeper he dove into this task, the more he realized how dangerous the waters ahead could be. The stakes escalated every moment, and the prospect of losing everything loomed larger. Back at his office, Samuel stared out the window, contemplating the path ahead. His commitment to justice and protecting the vulnerable pushed him forward. Despite the fear, the moral quandary of his choices began to crystallize. Risking safety for the greater good became the defining compromise of their fight. He understood that each decision could not only alter the course of Maria's life but also reshape the narrative of justice itself. That night, as he prepared to gather evidence, Samuel resolved to face the impending storm head-on. With Fiona by his side and Stephen's guidance, he would not allow the invisible hand of injustice to silence their voices. Each step forward was a step toward change, and he was ready to embrace whatever came next in his relentless pursuit of truth. As the sun rose on the morning of the trial, a palpable tension filled the courthouse, almost tangible in the air. Samuel Rodriguez sat at his desk, surrounded by files and papers, gazing out the window. Inside, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. Today was not just about Maria, it was about challenging a system that had long been flawed. A battle against the powers that be. Fiona, ever the determined ally, walked in with a stack of documents. "Samuel, I found additional evidence that we can present today. It ties directly to the witnesses that were bribed," she said, her voice a blend of excitement and urgency. Samuel felt a flicker of hope, a small victory that might just give them the edge they needed. But deep down, he understood that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges that could test both their resolve and integrity. As they made their way into the courtroom, they could feel the stares of both supporters and detractors alike. Maria sat nervously. A single mother who had already endured too much. Her eyes filled with both fear and determination. Samuel took his seat next to her and locked eyes with her. He silently promised that he wouldn't let her down. The gavel struck, and the trial commenced. The prosecution opened with compelling rhetoric, painting Maria as a criminal without scruples. Samuel's heart sank. Yet he remained focused. He was determined to peel back the layers of deceit obscuring the truth. As the trial progressed, he summoned his first witness, a local shopkeeper who had initially accused Maria. "Can you explain what you saw that day?" Samuel asked, his voice steady, despite the pounding of his heart. The shopkeeper hesitated, fumbling with his words. As Samuel skillfully unwrapped contradictions in his testimony, questions leading to gaps that suggested potential manipulation, the tables began to turn as viewers whispered among themselves, raising eyebrows at the unraveling narrative. Then came the ominous moment when the prosecution called their star witness, a notorious figure known for his connections with the corrupt circuit judges. Samuel felt the atmosphere sour. This was the person behind the curtain, the puppet master pulling strings to maintain the status quo. The courtroom held its breath as the witness took the stand. And Samuel knew this was a crucial juncture in the trial. With a deep breath, he approached. "Isn't it true that you've been granted money and favors to ensure certain outcomes in cases like this?" he asked. And the courtroom filled with gasps. The witness faltered under the pressure, the cracks in his composure revealing his guilt. It became evident that the corruption Samuel had uncovered was not only widespread but also incredibly dangerous. Outside the courthouse, a crowd began to gather, rallying behind Maria's case. Samuel and Fiona traded knowing glances, aware that something bigger was brewing beyond the walls of the courtroom. As the trial unfolded, each exchange became a battle not just for law but for the very principles of justice. Samuel felt the tension building around them. Their resolve was tested as they confronted various threats from those wishing to see them fail. This chapter marked a crucial moment in Samuel's journey, a relentless struggle between hope and despair, duty and fear. The climax loomed closer, and Samuel could feel that the fight for justice was far from over. The stakes had never been higher. But Samuel was determined to stand firm, a torchbearer for truth amidst the shadows of corruption. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in the courtroom, tension crackled in the air. Samuel sat at the defense table, his heart pounding, as he prepared to speak for Maria, the single mother wrongfully accused of theft. With the case attracting media attention, public interest was at an all-time high. Samuel realized that this was more than just a courtroom battle, it was a fight for the rights of every underprivileged individual who felt unheard in a system that seemed unforgiving. In the days leading to the trial, Samuel and Fiona tirelessly worked to gather support from the community. They organized town hall meetings, inviting citizens to share their stories of injustice. With each event, Samuel became more than a lawyer, he evolved into a community leader, rallying people around shared experiences that echoed his own fight for Maria. He encouraged them to speak out, helping to transform their pain into a collective voice that could no longer be ignored. The day of the trial arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Friends, family, and supporters filled the courtroom, creating an audience that outnumbered the opposition. Samuel recalled Maria's face. A mix of fear and hope. And felt a renewed sense of purpose. He stood up, commanding attention as he began his opening statement. Each word woven with empathy and determination. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, his voice steady but impassioned. "Today, you will witness a woman's fight for justice. A fight that should not have to happen at all. Maria is not just a statistic, she is a mother, a caregiver, and a member of our community. She deserves a chance to be heard." As the trial progressed, Samuel's strategy became clear. He wasn't just defending Maria, he was challenging the very foundation of a system that often silenced the voices of the most vulnerable. He introduced compassionate testimonies from community members who had faced similar injustices. Each narrative resonating deeply with the jury. The courtroom transformed into a space of shared experiences, solidarity, and hope. Amidst the emotional testimonies, tensions flared when the prosecutor attempted to undermine Samuel's evidence, accusing him of creating a sympathetic spectacle. But Samuel deftly countered, reminding the jury that justice was not a mere transaction, it was about recognizing the humanity within each case and taking a stand against oppression. As the day drew to a close, Maria took the stand. Her voice trembled as she recounted her experience, captivating the room with her vulnerability. Samuel watched as tears filled her eyes. He knew this moment could awaken empathy in the hearts of the jury. With every ounce of strength, Samuel continued to empower Maria's story, illustrating how much was at stake, not just for her, but for countless others who found themselves trapped in a system that often treated the poor as disposable. At the end of the session, as the gavel echoed through the courtroom, Samuel felt a sense of solidarity in the room. They had begun to change the narrative, to give a voice to the voiceless. And in that moment, he knew that whatever the outcome, he had already won a battle against silence. This chapter not only illustrates the unwavering spirit of Samuel and his commitment to justice but also emphasizes the power of community and the importance of amplifying the voices of those often overlooked. As the trial intensifies, the weight of justice presses heavily on Samuel Rodriguez and Fiona, the passionate duo determined to expose corruption in the judicial system. However, their pursuit of truth comes at a steep price. Threats against them escalate. Shadows linger ominously in courthouses, and dark whispers circulate among colleagues. They quickly realize that their commitment has turned them into targets, drawing the ire of powerful adversaries willing to do whatever it takes to maintain the status quo. One fateful evening, after a long day in court, Samuel receives an anonymous message warning him to drop the case. The message chillingly states, "Back off, or you'll regret it." A knot forms in his stomach, and he shares the news with Fiona, whose determination only deepens in response. "We can't let fear silence the voices of the innocent," she asserts, her eyes fierce with resolve. Their bond strengthens under the pressure, which proves critical as they prepare to face the mounting challenges. Despite the dangers lurking around them, Samuel remains focused on the trial, refusing to let intimidation overshadow their mission. Maria, the single mother fighting for her life and future, finds herself caught in the crossfire. The emotional toll of the trial begins to affect her. Sleepless nights filled with dread have left her feeling vulnerable and demoralized. As the case's weight bears down on her, Maria questions whether the fight for justice is worth the sacrifices they are all making. One evening, they gather at a local diner to regroup, over mugs of bitter coffee. Samuel and Fiona discuss their next steps, They realize that muddying their paths with fear is counterproductive. Armed with a renewed sense of purpose, they channel their energies toward finding allies who share their commitment to justice within the community. They connect with activists and former clients, organizing a rally to amplify Maria's story and the wider implications of institutional corruption. Days pass, each one marked by increasing tension and uncertainty about the trial. Samuel feels the fear creeping into his bones. Yet he recalls the faces of those he fights for, the voiceless, the dismissed, and the vulnerable. During a crucial moment right before the court reconvenes, he receives a call from an ally promising crucial evidence that could potentially turn the tide. Hope ignites within him as he shares the news with Fiona, who nods with conviction. The emotional toll becomes a unifying force for the trio. They realize they are not just battling for Maria but for every individual undermined by a system favoring the powerful. When the trial resumes, all three are ready to face whatever consequences may come their way. As Samuel stands before the judge, determination radiates from him, contrasting the trembling uncertainty he felt only days before. This chapter reflects the complexities of their struggle, the challenges of fighting against a powerful system, while fostering hope amidst fear. The emotional turmoil faced by characters makes their quest transcendent while upholding the narrative's moral message, the fight for justice, even under the harrowing threat of intimidation, is a noble endeavor that can inspire collective action and change. The courtroom was thick with tension as the trial reached its pivotal moment, a frenzy of emotions, hope, and uncertainty swirling in the air like an impending storm. Samuel Rodriguez stood firmly before the judge, adrenaline coursing through his veins, knowing that the fate of his client, Maria, hinged on the revelations he was about to deliver. After months of gathering evidence and battling a corrupt system, it was time to expose the hidden affiliations that had perpetuated injustice for far too long. As he glanced toward the jury, Samuel's heart raced. He could see the faces of people who represented the very community he fought to protect. With unwavering resolve, he began to lay out the intricate web of corruption that connected key players within the judicial system. The air was heavy with anticipation as he presented a series of damning documents, emails, and testimonies that highlighted the collusion between the prosecution's office and the powerful corrupt forces that benefited from the subjugation of the poor. Dawn began to break on the horizon of truth, casting light on the dark corners that had silenced the voiceless for ages. Yet, as Samuel built his case, he noticed the piercing gaze of Victor Sullivan, a high-ranking prosecutor known for his ruthless tactics. Victor, a man steeped in arrogance and entitlement, shot Samuel a contemptuous smirk that sent a chill down his spine. It was then that Samuel's determination intensified. He couldn't allow fear to steer him off course. In a stunning moment, Samuel presented an explosive piece of evidence, an audio recording of a clandestine conversation between Victor and a prominent business tycoon. The recording revealed their plan to manipulate the legal outcomes for personal gain, intentionally targeting those without the means to defend themselves. Gasps erupted from the audience as the implications of the evidence washed over them. An emotional wave of outrage filled the room. Samuel seized the opportunity to connect Maria's case to a broader narrative about systemic abuse and the fragility of justice in the face of greed. As he proceeded with the cross-examination of Victor, the courtroom vibrated with intensity. Samuel, embodying the voice of the unheard, interrogated Victor with precision, dismantling his facade of invincibility with every question. Each response from Victor dripped with condescension, exposing the cracks in his otherwise polished demeanor. Samuel's strategy was clear: force Victor to confront the very truths he had spent his career burying beneath layers of deception. With each passing moment, it became clear that a reckoning was upon them. Samuel's courage illuminated the courtroom, echoing the silent cries of countless individuals like Maria, who had suffered under a system designed to ignore their pain. As the chapter unfolded, the realization set in: this was not just about Maria's life, but about the lives of many who had been marginalized by a corrupt system that thrived on their invisibility. In a final dramatic turn, Samuel presented testimonials from community members who had been victims of the same injustices Maria faced, weaving their stories into the fabric of the case. The jury's eyes widened, absorbing the weight of the collective anguish that had been silenced for far too long. With the foundation of truth laid bare before them, the courtroom braced for an outcome that could reshape the narrative of justice. In this moment of reckoning, the triumphs and tragedies intertwined, hinting at the pivotal conclusion that lay just around the corner. Would Samuel's courage be enough to transcend the barriers erected by greed and power? As the tension lingered, one thing became clear: the quest for justice had ignited a movement, promising that no one would remain invisible any longer. As the courtroom quiets, the atmosphere is thick with anticipation. The judge pauses, the gavel raised in a moment that feels like an eternity. In this pivotal instant, the culmination of Samuel's relentless fight for justice hangs delicately in the balance. Finally, the verdict is pronounced: Maria is acquitted of all charges. A decision that reverberates like a bombshell, shattering the oppressive silence of the court. Overwhelmed with emotion, Maria collapses into tears of relief as her supporters erupt into cheers. Samuel feels a surge of triumph mixed with disbelief. This victory is not merely a personal win for him and Maria, it symbolizes hope for countless others caught in the web of an unjust system. The cheers of the crowd resonate deeply within him, reinforcing his belief that perseverance can ignite change. In the aftermath of the trial, Samuel stands outside the courthouse, where a fortuitous gathering of community members has formed, a mix of families, friends, and advocates who once felt powerless. Inspired by Maria's story and Samuel's unwavering commitment, they express their determination to prevent injustices from occurring in their community. Samuel listens intently, each voice representing a story of struggle. And he realizes the impact of collective action. A community united against injustice is an unstoppable force. As the celebration unfolds, Fiona steps beside Samuel, her eyes shimmering with pride. "We did it," she says, her voice filled with emotion. Samuel nods in agreement but knows that the journey doesn't end here. The corruption they uncovered is still lurking in the shadows, and the fight for justice will be ongoing. It is just the beginning of a larger movement to address systemic issues within the legal framework. That night, Samuel reflects on everything he has learned throughout this grueling journey. He understands that the path to righteousness is fraught with challenges. Yet it's precisely through those challenges that true resilience is forged. He pens a heartfelt letter to his community, imploring them to remain vigilant, to speak out, and to support one another. In doing so, he recognizes the profound importance of solidarity and the role it plays in uplifting those silenced by inequities. As the dawn breaks on a new day, the visible changes in the community are undeniable. The courthouse is no longer just a place of judgment, it has transformed into a space where voices are heard and the unheard have gained allies. The movement that began with Maria's case continues to gain momentum, lighting a fire in the hearts of the people. In this new dawn, Samuel stands ready to face whatever challenges may arise. He has become a beacon of hope, A reminder that one individual's fight for justice can inspire many. As the sun rises, he can see a future where the concepts of fairness and equity prevail. The journey is far from over. But with courage, resilience, and unity, Samuel believes in the possibility of a just world, a message that he is eager to share with a wider audience. As we conclude this powerful narrative, we invite you, our viewers, to reflect on Samuel and Maria's journey. How can we, as a community, fight for justice and support one another? Let's ignite discussions, raise awareness, and take tangible steps towards creating a society where justice truly prevails for all. Thank you for joining us on this emotional and enlightening journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more compelling stories that challenge societal perceptions. Together, let's make a difference.